My wife was young and accomplished, the youngest chief neurosurgeon at the state hospital. She was passionate about medical research, storing all her data and findings on an encrypted computer in her research lab. Besides her, only I could access that computer. So, when I saw the new male resident trainee confidently type in the password and brazenly copy the data from the computer, I realized this marriage might have been over long ago. And along with it, everything Victoria Hayes had gained through her association with me. Later, she tearfully demanded, "Why did you have to destroy me?" I scoffed, "I'm a businessman. When an investment goes south, don't I have the right to cut my losses?" Chapter 1. On Victoria's birthday, I made a special trip to the hospital to pick her up for celebrations. She was a research fanatic. When she wasn't in surgery, she practically lived in the lab. To prevent data leaks, I had set up a dedicated encrypted computer for her. Apart from her, only I knew the password. When I arrived, she was still in surgery, so I decided to wait for her in the lab. The lab door was slightly ajar and opened with a gentle push. Victoria wasn't there, but someone was sitting at her desk. Ethan Miller, a resident trainee in Victoria's department. He was currently holding the mouse, skillfully operating the computer. Seeing me enter, a flash of surprise crossed his face, quickly replaced by a warm greeting. "Mr. Clark, you're here? Dr. Hayes isn't out of surgery yet. She asked me to help organize some experimental data first." As he spoke, he removed a USB drive from the computer tower and casually slipped it into his pocket. "Please, have a seat, Mr. Clark. Let me get you some tea." He expertly opened the bottom right drawer of the desk and took out Victoria's private stash of tea leaves. He acted just like the man of the house. I remained silent, a knot tightening in my chest. Victoria had told me the experiment she was working on was crucial, key to her bid for a major international medical award. All the experimental data was stored on that computer. To prevent leaks, she'd even hired a hacker for multi-layered encryption. Only the specific password could unlock it. She had said, "Sincere, you're my husband, the person I trust most. Only the two of us know this password." But now, Ethan Miller was casually operating her computer, freely downloading experimental data. Though I was Victoria's husband, he seemed more like the master of this place than I did. His tone, his gaze, everything told me he held a special significance for Victoria. I had rejected a marriage of convenience, marrying Victoria, whom I fell for at first sight, without hesitation. I believed our love was real, unique, and special to each other. But now, it seemed it might have all been wishful thinking on my part. Chapter 2. I masked the storm raging inside me with a cold expression. "Get out." Ethan Miller's hand paused mid-motion while preparing the tea. "But Dr. Hayes, she—" My face turned completely cold. I repeated, "Get out." I had funded the construction of this hospital. I certainly had the authority to dismiss a resident trainee. He obviously knew this. His face turned pale, and he lowered his head in embarrassment. "Okay, Mr. Clark." He put down the teacup, turned, and walked out. On Victoria's desk, he had left behind one of his fountain pens. The air also held the lingering, cheap, nauseating scent of his shower gel. Not long after Victoria arrived. "Huh? Sincere, you're here so early?" She looked a little surprised to see me, her eyes scanning the lab. "Where's Ethan? Why isn't he here?" I don't know when it started, but her way of addressing Ethan Miller had shifted from Miller to Ethan. I took a deep breath, trying to appear calm. I told him to leave. "Vicky, how does Ethan Miller know your computer password?" Victoria flinched slightly, subtly avoiding my gaze. "Oh, I couldn't get away from surgery, and the data was needed urgently, so I asked Ethan to log in and help me organize it. It's not a big deal, don't overthink it." She reached out to hug me, but I took a step back, dodging her embrace. "Am I overthinking it? You said the experimental data was more important than your life, that you trusted no one but me. And now? Is Ethan Miller also worth risking your life to trust?" I stared at her with an icy gaze I had never used before. "I don't want anyone else becoming an exception in our relationship. No one, for any reason, is acceptable. Victoria's smile froze on her face. She clearly hadn't expected me to make such a big issue of it. After a moment of silence, she made a solemn promise. "Okay, I promise you, I'll change the password tomorrow, and I won't tell a third person ever again." Chapter 3. Because of this incident, Victoria's birthday celebration was strained. I booked the most luxurious rooftop restaurant and gifted her the high-end experimental equipment she had longed for. Outwardly, we still appeared to be the most loving couple, but deep down, I knew a crack had formed in our marriage, one that would be difficult to mend. When we got home that evening, Victoria hugged me. "Sincere, you haven't smiled all night. Are you still angry about what happened earlier today?" She kissed my cheek, her tone holding a hint of pleading. "It's my birthday today. Can we please not fight? Besides, I only see Ethan as a student. You know I've always valued talent." Ultimately, I softened, letting out a soft sigh. "Vicky, I'm not doubting your relationship. Even if it had been a woman opening your computer today, I wouldn't accept it." I pulled her close, listening to the familiar beat of her heart. "What truly bothers me is that someone broke the unique bond between us. I know how much you care about your research findings. That computer password was never just a password. It symbolized our complete, unreserved trust and love for each other. I don't want anyone breaching that line of defense. It makes me doubt whether I'm still the only one for you." A flicker of apology appeared in Victoria's eyes. "I'm sorry, Sincere. It was a momentary oversight. I made you upset. I promise something like this will never happen again." Chapter 4. Some time passed, and Ethan Miller, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly reappeared on my radar. He posted on his social media, so happy finally got 8 SCI papers published. The accompanying image was a collage of journal publication screenshots. I frowned, sensing something was wrong. I directly called Samuel Johnson, the Vice Director of Neurosurgery in Victoria's department. He came from a small rural town, and my father had funded his university education. Later, I arranged for him to work at the state hospital, so he always regarded my father and me as benefactors and held nothing back from us. "Is that Ethan Miller in your department very capable?" As soon as I mentioned him, Samuel Johnson knew what I was asking. He answered evasively. "He's reasonably capable, but I was quite surprised he could publish 8 SCI papers in a month. There's a top-tier medical summit in New York next month. One of the criteria for participation is having at least 8 SCI publications. I heard Ethan Miller say that Dr. Hayes has already decided to take him to the summit. As a funder and organizer, I was certainly aware of this medical summit. The main topic was deep brain stimulation, Victoria's area of expertise, and the attending experts were renowned in the field. Publishing 8 SCI papers was a basic entry requirement, but not the standard for actual admission to the main conference hall. Ethan Miller was just a resident trainee, having barely assisted in a few surgeries. Even if he met the publication requirement, his experience and capabilities wouldn't qualify him for entry. Yet Victoria planned to take him. Samuel Johnson continued, "There's a lot of talk about this in the hospital. Everyone says Ethan Miller's papers are highly professional, and his style is very similar to Dr. Hayes, raising suspicions." He hinted without elaborating. In short, everyone feels that Dr. Hayes and Ethan Miller are very close. My hand holding the phone trembled uncontrollably, and even breathing became difficult. What on earth was Victoria trying to do? Was she helping Ethan Miller so blatantly, even resorting to academic fraud for him? This crossed her own principles far more than sharing her computer password. Were her previous apologies fake? Were her promises lies? Or were those words just meant to humor me? Fine. If you want to challenge my boundaries, prepare to be crushed. I immediately summoned my secretary, changed the structure of the New York Medical Summit, set up separate inner and outer conference areas, raised the entry standards for the inner hall. Only international experts may enter. Lower the threshold for the outer hall. Any medical student or general practitioner with 8 published SCI papers can attend. Send several invitations to Dr. Hayes' department. inviting all members to attend. Reserve the best spots for them in the outer hall. My secretary immediately carried out the instructions, and the promotional materials spread like wildfire online. The already highly anticipated medical summit caused an even bigger stir in the industry. Countless eligible doctors rushed to register, grateful for the chance to attend, even if only in the outer hall. With this change, Ethan Miller's supposed participation slot instantly became laughable and pathetic. Victoria could help him write papers, but she couldn't change his status, nor could she possibly make an exception to get him into the inner hall. When thousands of people qualified for the outer hall simultaneously, his special status became meaningless. Because of his previous flaunting, he became the subject of ridicule both publicly and privately. Samuel Johnson told me that on the day of the summit, Ethan Miller was lost in the crowd of the outer hall. The speech he had prepared for half a month went unused. His face darkened with anger, and he left dejectedly before the event was even halfway through. I wanted to show Ethan Miller that Victoria's special treatment wasn't enough to support his challenge against me. I also wanted Victoria to seriously consider where everything she currently possessed truly came from. Chapter 5. The evening the medical summit ended, Victoria returned very late. She had been drinking and looked unhappy. Of course I knew why, but I pretended to be oblivious. There's something in the kitchen to help you sober up. Go have some. Seeing my calm and open expression, she swallowed the rebuke that was on the tip of her tongue. No need, I'm going to bed. She kicked off her shoes and went upstairs with a dark face, slamming the door shut with a bang. Seeing her like this, I knew Ethan Miller must have said something to her. Just then, Samuel Johnson happened to call. From him I learned the full story. After the summit dispersed, Ethan Miller cornered Victoria in the parking lot. He looked extremely aggrieved, eyes red, pouring out his woes to her. Dr. Hayes, I worked so hard just to attend the summit, see the world, learn more, and become your right-hand man sooner. I never thought I'd upset Mr. Clark, to the point where he'd change the rules and waste resources just to prevent me from attending with you. Now everyone's laughing behind my back, saying my plan backfired spectacularly. I feel really humiliated, so I came specifically to resign. Thank you for your care during this time. With just a few words, he painted himself as an innocent victim, while I became the villain petty, throwing my weight around just because I had money. Victoria had come from poverty and couldn't stand seeing the underdog bullied. Her protective instincts flared up instantly. Not only did she persuade him to stay, but she even declared she would get justice for him. I sneered inwardly. Such a cheap trick, yet Victoria fell for it every time. The only one to blame was me, for protecting her too well over the years, letting her believe she had become genuinely strong, capable of protecting others. Chapter 6. The next morning, Victoria sat across from me. Sincere, Ethan will come by this afternoon to pay you a visit. My hand holding my breakfast spoon paused. I looked up coldly. Visit me? Yes. Victoria nodded, choosing her words carefully. What happened with the summit had a very negative impact on Ethan. He wants a chance to explain things clearly to you so you won't target him anymore. Target? I stared at the woman who was my wife, feeling only a profound sense of unfamiliarity. Is it a misunderstanding that he swaggered around the hospital, leveraging the privileges you gave him? Or is it a misunderstanding that you helped him publish papers and intended to break the rules to take him to the summit? Victoria hadn't expected me to be so direct. She froze for a moment, then hurriedly tried to explain. Sincere, you really misunderstood. Those papers, I just provided some guidance. Mainly he wrote them himself. And the summit, Ethan is quite capable himself. Plus, he's helped me a lot recently, so I just wanted to take him to broaden his horizons. It's also beneficial for work. I truly have no other intentions towards him. I put down my utensils, unwilling to listen to any more excuses. If you're informing me, then let him come. There are some things I'd like to make clear sooner rather than later. In the afternoon, Ethan Miller arrived with a fruit basket. Today, he wore a clean white shirt, his hair neatly combed, looking sharper than in his hospital uniform. He stood behind Victoria, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Mr. Clark, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have posted about the papers on social media, nor should I have told others I was attending the summit. I just felt such an opportunity was so rare I got carried away with excitement. It was wrong of me to upset you. Please forgive me." He bowed deeply towards me, his attitude appearing very sincere. Victoria gently nudged my shoulder, signaling me to accept the apology. I pretended not to understand, my gaze sweeping coldly towards Ethan Miller. "I didn't ask you here to listen to your apology, but to make a few things clear to you face to face. 1. Recognize your own position, do your job properly, and don't covet things that don't belong to you. 2. Put away your petty schemes, don't test my limits or you'll face the consequences." Ethan Miller looked utterly astonished, glancing pleadingly at Victoria beside him. I followed his gaze, my tone leaving no room for doubt. "Victoria, my patience has limits. If I see anything like this happen again, I will not forgive it. You'd both better watch yourselves." With that, I ignored their unpleasant expressions and turned to go upstairs. After seeing Ethan Miller out, Victoria stormed upstairs after me. "Sincere Clark, how could you become like this?" Ethan came specifically to apologize. "Even if you didn't accept it, why did you have to be so aggressive? And about the summit, you arbitrarily changed the entry rules just to target Ethan. Not only did you lower the summit's prestige, but you also wasted a ton of resources. The loss outweighs the gain." "I'm aggressive?" You really have to laugh when you're speechless. You still think I'm the problem here? You casually gave away privileges that should have been mine alone, even broke your own principles to commit fraud for Ethan Miller, paving the way for him, and I'm just supposed to turn a blind eye? Victoria choked for a moment, then raised her voice. "I've already explained taking him to the summit was just to acknowledge his ability and thank him for his help. Besides, it's not like I haven't taken others before." I snorted coldly. "Ability? Help? His ability is letting you ghostwrite his papers? Victoria, dare you say you have absolutely no feelings for him?" Victoria still tried to argue. "I just feel it's not easy for him, working his way up on his own. I started as a trainee too. I understand his situation. I help where I can." At this, she looked up, meeting my gaze, her tone firm. "Besides, this is my work. As a department head, an internationally renowned expert, don't I even have the right to look after one of my subordinates?" I nodded calmly. "Very well. Then as your husband, surely I have the right to divorce you?" Victoria's face instantly changed, her voice rising sharply as she questioned me in disbelief. "Sincere Clark, we've been together for 10 years, and you're talking about divorce over such a small thing?" Chapter 7. I met her gaze, my eyes utterly calm. "What I want is wholehearted devotion, to be the only one in your heart. Since you've crossed that line, I naturally have to consider whether this marriage is still worth maintaining." Seemingly hurt by the finality in my eyes, Victoria finally gritted her teeth and conceded. "Fine, I'll listen to you. From today onwards, I won't give Ethan Miller any special treatment, and I won't have excessive contact with him outside of work. Satisfied? And stop threatening me with divorce." I remained non-committal because divorce wasn't a threat, and I knew her well enough to know these promises were merely temporary. For a long time after that, Victoria kept her promise, intentionally maintaining distance from Ethan Miller. I heard he tried to approach her privately several times, but Victoria refused, wanting to avoid suspicion. Rumors spread that Ethan Miller's attempt to seduce Victoria failed, and he got pushed back. Coupled with the fact that he had offended many people previously by relying on Victoria's influence, his colleagues at the hospital increasingly disliked him, even starting to intentionally ostracize and isolate him. The pressure mounted on him. He became distracted at work, making mistakes repeatedly and receiving multiple complaints from patients' families. Once, when I went to the hospital to see Victoria, I barely recognized him when I saw him from afar. His once energetic face was etched with fatigue. He looked several years older and haggard, but I felt no pity, nor did I intervene. It's only fair that someone pays a price for their mistakes. A few days later, things suddenly changed again. During an important neurosurgery, Ethan Miller was assisting Samuel Johnson. Due to a lapse in concentration, there was a minor accident that nearly resulted in a major medical malpractice incident. Afterward, an angry Samuel Johnson publicly reprimanded him, using harsh language. Ethan Miller stood amidst the crowd with his head bowed, looking unsteady, pitiful, and wretched. And this scene was witnessed by Victoria. Her face immediately darkened, her icy glare like daggers, almost boring a hole through Samuel Johnson. I knew she was reminded of her own early days in the profession, the criticisms and grievances she had endured. When she was an intern, lacking connections, she was often bullied by senior staff in the same department. They spread rumors about her, repeatedly stole her research findings, and even tried to frame her for a major medical accident. So Ethan Miller's current situation undoubtedly triggered her protective instincts fiercely. It also made her forget her promise to me once again. Chapter 8. That night, Victoria and I had the most intense argument since we got married. She pointed her finger at my nose, furious. "Sincere Clark, that's enough. Do you have to push someone to their death before you're satisfied?" I was baffled. Who am I pushing to their death? Still playing dumb? Blinded by rage, Victoria continued. "Wasn't it you who instructed Samuel Johnson to suppress Ethan? Do you know how humiliated, how wronged he felt today? Just like I used to be, she indiscriminately insisted on blaming me for Ethan Miller's mistreatment. Of course, I refused to take the fall. I didn't ask anyone to bully him. He doesn't focus on improving his medical skills, spends all his time scheming. It's normal for him to not make it in the hospital. Also, stop bringing up your past experiences. Ethan Miller is not a projection of your past suffering. Put away your cheap sympathy and protective instincts." Cheap?" She laughed coldly. "Sincere Clark, I never realized you were such a cold-blooded person. You were born with a silver spoon. You've never experienced the lives of us common folk, nor can you empathize. All you know is how to bully people using your power." My heart felt like it was being slowly sliced by a sharp knife. Was this woman viciously accusing me for another man, still the beloved I had married against all odds? Disappointment crushed the air out of me. I didn't want to argue, nor did I care to explain further. The next day, news arrived simultaneously. Samuel Johnson was transferred out of the department, and Victoria Hayes had made an exception to keep Ethan Miller on staff. Victoria had delivered a slap in the face to everyone who had bullied Ethan Miller with her actions. She was also silently declaring to me she was determined to protect Ethan Miller. Chapter 9. From that day on, Victoria and I entered a complete Cold War. She moved from the master bedroom to the guest room, then from the guest room to the hospital dormitory. I never once tried to stop her. In fact, I felt relieved not having to face her cold expression anymore. And Victoria, as if to spite me, continued to push my boundaries further. She frequently took Ethan Miller to major medical seminars, promoted him ahead of schedule with pay raises, and allowed him to openly intrude into her personal life. One time the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ethan Miller. He greeted me with a smile. "Dr. Hayes is taking me to New York today for an academic exchange. She didn't have time to come back and pack, so she specifically asked me to run this errand. Pick up some documents and a change of clothes for her." Unlike his previous haggard appearance, he now looked radiant, even slightly smug. I had the housekeeper deal with him, not even gracing him with a glance from start to finish. Only after he left did my heart turn cold, piece by piece. "Victoria, must you disgust me, hurt me like this?" I blocked Victoria on all platforms and refused to meet her, giving our relationship the cold shoulder. Since the scales of her heart had tipped completely towards Ethan Miller, there was nothing left for me to hold on to. Chapter 10. Anyone with eyes could see that Victoria's care for Ethan Miller was inappropriate, and the rumors and gossip intensified. Ethan Miller not only didn't clarify, but seemed happy to let it happen. He frequently updated his social media, subtly hinting at his special place with Victoria. Sometimes it was pictures of him and Victoria attending international medical seminars together. Captioned, "So glad to attend such a grand event, really nervous sometimes it was him doing experiments with her in her private lab." Captioned, "Learned so much from Dr. Hayes again, there were even selfies of them eating together." Captioned, "Finished another major surgery, rewarding my hard-working self." I blocked and deleted him, completely uninterested, asking nothing about the ambiguous details of their interactions. When disappointment gradually accumulates into despair, you hit rock bottom and bounce back, triggering self-preservation. I started contacting lawyers, taking stock of my premarital and marital assets, calculating my investments and expenditures on Victoria over the years. Since the marriage was no longer reliable, I had to protect my own interests. Victoria thought she could hurt me recklessly for someone else. Ethan Miller thought he had finally defeated me and successfully taken my place with Victoria. How laughable. They would soon pay the price for their actions. Chapter 11. Victoria's mother, Eleanor Hayes, was hospitalized and called me several times saying she wanted to see me. I knew she had heard about the Cold War between Victoria and me and wanted to mediate, so I reluctantly agreed to visit. To avoid worrying the elderly woman, I went to the lab to find Victoria first. The lab door was closed but unlocked. I knocked, heard Victoria say, "Come in," then turned the handle and entered. Only Victoria and Ethan Miller were in the spacious lab. Victoria, wearing safety goggles, was working at the experiment bench. Ethan Miller was sitting at her computer, using it to help her record experimental data. Victoria looked up, glancing at me indifferently. "I'm still busy. Sit down and wait for me." My hand was still on the doorknob. My gaze swept over her computer and Ethan Miller behind it. Victoria knew what I was bothered by. She frowned. "Ethan, turn off the computer." Ethan Miller was taken aback for a moment. "But the experimental data isn't finished yet. Copy the data to your computer. I won't be using this one anymore." After saying this, Victoria gave me another meaningful look. "From now on, only you can use it, okay?" She transferred data more precious than her own life onto Ethan Miller's computer, leaving an empty machine for me. Fine. When it came to humiliation, she was a master. Victoria didn't speak to me further, immersing herself back into her experiment. It was Ethan Miller who, while transferring the data, cast a light glance my way. The slight curl of his lips was full of mockery, but he didn't know. It couldn't hurt me anymore. My heart was calm as still water. I even felt a little like laughing. Chapter 12. Half an hour later, Victoria and I walked towards Mrs. Hayes' hospital room together. Her expression was normal. She didn't seem bothered by the hurt her actions had caused me. She even discussed next week's medical expert conference with me as usual. "This conference is very important. I'll be presenting my latest research findings. Help me get a few more industry bigwigs to attend. Money is no object." She paused, then emphasized, "Make the conference high-end. Don't let what happened last time occur again." I remained silent, pulling out my phone to send a message to my secretary. In the hospital room, Mrs. Hayes held my hand and talked for a while, then suggested we hurry up and have a child, trying to ease the tension between Victoria and me this way. Victoria maintained a facade of harmony, readily agreeing. I, however, said nothing, quietly peeling an apple for Mrs. Hayes. Suddenly, Victoria's phone rang. Ethan Miller's name flashed on the screen. She answered, and after listening for just a few moments, her face fell. "What?" "Cancelled." "Did you ask clearly? How could this happen?" I don't know what the person on the other end said, but Victoria's expression grew increasingly grim, her hand holding the phone trembling slightly. Mrs. Hayes grew anxious seeing this. "What's wrong? What happened?" Victoria hung up dejectedly, looking up at me with disbelief in her eyes. "Next week's expert conference. Did you have it canceled?" My silence was confirmation. Surprise, anger, doubt, a mix of emotions flooded her eyes. "The hospital lab upgrade project being halted. Was that your doing too?" And the investors pulling out of the Joint Medical Research Institute with Qingbei University, are you connected to that as well? Mrs. Hayes also looked at me, shocked. How could that be? Sincere has always been the biggest supporter of your career, Vicky. Are you mistaken? How could Sincere possibly be involved in this? Victoria stared straight at me, seemingly hoping to hear a denial from my lips. I smiled faintly, meeting her gaze calmly and openly. Yes, it's all true. And it was all my decision. Chapter 13. Victoria staggered back a step, asking hoarsely, "Why would you do this? You know how important research is to me. By destroying these projects, you're destroying me, destroying your wife." I cut her off with a cold laugh. When you allowed Ethan Miller to cross my boundaries step by step, when you hurled vicious words at me for his sake, when you humiliated me in front of him, why didn't you remember you were my wife then? I looked at her, my gaze as cold as if looking at a stranger. You betrayed our marriage first. You betrayed me. Don't blame me for taking back everything you gained through me. I'm a businessman. When an investment fails, can't I cut my losses? One has to stop the bleeding eventually, right? Victoria retorted, eyes red. I didn't betray you. How many times do I have to say it before you believe me? I only treated Ethan like a student I was mentoring. How could you do this to me based on your groundless suspicions? Groundless suspicions? I laughed out of exasperation. Your so-called groundless suspicions caused me real tangible harm. When the most basic trust between a husband and wife is gone, can love still exist? I stared at her, announcing word by word, Victoria, we're getting a divorce. Chapter 14. I had barely stepped out of the hospital room when Victoria chased after me. Sincere, can we please talk at home? I can explain everything clearly. Her face was filled with panic, even a hint of pleading. I pulled my hand away. Home stopped being home the moment you let Ethan Miller visit whenever he pleased. The corridor was crowded with curious patients and doctors. Victoria's face flushed red. She forcefully dragged me into the car and took me back to the house we once shared. The large villa felt empty. My belongings were gone, and hers were packed and piled in a corner. I'm already preparing to sell the house. You should move your things to the hospital dormitory. As for the rest of the marital and premarital assets, the lawyer will contact you to coordinate. Only then did Victoria realize I was serious. She clung to me, pleading desperately, Sincere, please don't be so cruel to me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have hurt you again and again. I just felt he was like my past self. I couldn't help it. From now on, I'll listen to everything you say. Please don't get a divorce, okay? Victoria was sobbing, like a lost child who had done wrong. In the past, I would have felt sorry for her, but now I only found it laughable. Victoria, what's the point of saying all this now? It was your indulgence of Ethan Miller that gradually eroded my love, making me utterly disillusioned with this marriage. Besides, stop saying Ethan Miller is like your past self. Have you forgotten who helped you when you were framed and nearly went to jail? How could you hurt the husband who actually saved you from dire straits, all for that ridiculous shadow? Victoria's face turned ashen. She couldn't say anything, only held on to me silently, weeping. As for those research investments, do you really think those investors were interested in your research, your technology? They just wanted to use it to establish connections with the Clark Group. So, everything I'm taking away was originally brought to you by me. For everything, you can only blame yourself for killing the husband who loved you. I gently pushed her away. Let's end our marriage here. Let's stop torturing each other. Chapter 15. The divorce papers were sent to Victoria via the lawyer, but she kept delaying, refusing to sign, even trying to win me back through actions. She reported Ethan Miller's academic fraud to the SCI journals and used this as grounds to demand his dismissal from the hospital, drawing a clear line between them. Then, she put her research on hold and started showing up at my current apartment as soon as she finished work, relentlessly pursuing me. She would cross the entire city to buy pastries I liked, deliver breakfast to me punctually every day. She would even shamelessly kneel outside my door after I refused her, crying and begging for my forgiveness. But the love was gone. No amount of pleading could bring it back. What I didn't expect was Ethan Miller showing up at my company. He had lost a lot of weight, strands of white hair surprisingly visible on his head. His tired eyes burned with resentment and hatred. "Sincere Clark, are you satisfied seeing me like this now? Just because you're rich and powerful, you think you can bully people from the bottom like me? Let me tell you, Victoria loves me. She's bowing to you only because I don't care." I cut him off coldly. "Mr. Miller, I think you misunderstand. Your current situation wasn't caused by me bullying you. It's the consequence of you trying to destroy someone else's family, seeking shortcuts and trying to climb the social ladder. Instead of wasting time raving here, you should reflect on your own actions." With that, I walked past him and left. Sincere Clark stopped right there. He tried to follow, but security guards promptly stopped him. He could only roar futilely behind me. Chapter 16. Victoria tirelessly tried to win me back for several months, but my attitude remained unchanged. I even quickly sorted out and divided the assets, canceled her black card, and calculated and recouped my expenditures on her life and career over the years. Her standing in the hospital, and even in the medical community, plummeted. Realizing her support system had collapsed, she finally understood I was dead set on divorce. Victoria finally relented, informing me through her lawyer that she agreed to the divorce. We met one last time at the courthouse. The vibrant spark in her eyes was gone, replaced by haunting pain. After signing the papers, the red marriage certificates were destroyed and replaced with green divorce decrees, symbolizing the definitive end of our marriage. I let out a long sigh of relief. This marriage had consumed all my passion and sincerity, suffocating me to the point where I could barely breathe. Thankfully, it was finally over. I smiled and said goodbye to Victoria, but as I turned to leave, she called out, "Sincere, I'm sorry." Hearing her choked voice, I knew she was crying, but I didn't look back. I strode forward and left. From then on, we went our separate ways. Later, I heard news about Victoria and Ethan Miller from Samuel Johnson. Due to academic fraud and meddling in his department head's marriage, Ethan Miller's reputation was terrible. Forget major hospitals. Even small clinics wouldn't hire him. With no options left, he ended up working as a rent boy in a shady bar. It was truly lamentable. He was once a promising young academic, but greed led him astray in a moment of weakness, and he ended up paying for it with the rest of his life. As for Victoria, after the divorce, her life also hit rock bottom. Losing me wasn't just losing a husband. It was losing the most crucial investor and resource in her life. She hit roadblocks everywhere trying to secure funding, possessing skills and ambition but nowhere to apply them. Gradually, she began to give up on herself, drowning her sorrows in alcohol daily. During one surgery, a negligent mistake led to a major error, resulting in a lawsuit involving a death. Although it was eventually settled with money, her career stalled. She tried to contact me again but was met with my resolute refusal, and I, after escaping that suffocating marriage, welcomed my own bright future. Under my leadership, the Clark Group reached new heights of development within just 1 year, with both domestic and international projects achieving great success. While enjoying worldly success, I also dedicated myself to philanthropy, funding charity schools for underprivileged children, establishing scholarship foundations, and helping countless children escape their limited circumstances and embrace broader opportunities. This life, I think, is what I truly wanted.